Hey, it's Jeremy from OpticHouse.com. A topic I have been meaning to discuss for a while now and just hadn't had a chance to get around to it is why I make comics. Not why I love the comic book medium. I love comic books because they're awesome. But why am I making them as opposed to all the other things I could be spending my time doing? And I've always loved comic books. When I was a little kid, they were what exposed me to art and to stories. They're what made me want to draw. I suppose I was drawing before I discovered comic books, but my brothers always had Archie comics and some other stuff laying around. My parents bought me G.I. Joe and Transformer comic books as a little kid, and I've always loved reading. I've always loved drawing. I've loved writing. And comic books afford me the ability to do all of those things. When I was in high school, I was probably at the height of my comic book buying and collecting of, weekly, of monthly issues from Marvel, DC, Dark Horse, indie comics. I was already into indie comics when I was in high school. But, just reading everything I could get my hands on. When I went to college, I went to a large four-year university, and I was a fine art major. And about halfway through the program, I started thinking about what I was going to be doing after I graduated. And I thought about the size of the comic book industry. Now, I was in college in the late 90s during the late 90s bust of the comics industry, when a lot of retailers were going out of business. It was the speculator bust after the speculator boom. A lot of people, had bought tons of comics because they thought they were going to save them and be able to resell them, a few years down the line and be millionaires. And that was not the case because, all of these books, now everyone was collecting and holding on to their comics. And it looked like people, I think, were realistically scared that the entire industry of comics was going to crumble and fall away. Thank God it's as strong as it is now, and it's revived and come back really robust. Print and digital working hand in hand. But at the time, it was a real question of not necessarily whether the industry was going to collapse, but just whether it was ever going to get any bigger than what it was. This incredibly small niche that, just a select few people were into. And I started running the numbers, and I looked at, okay, let's pretend that Marvel Comics puts out 100 books a month, which they don't. Let's pretend DC Comics puts out 100 titles a month, which they don't. Let's say that you took all the other companies, Image, Dark Horse, all of the indie comics that are IDW, which I don't think IDW didn't even exist back then. But if you were to take all the other indie comics together and wrap them up into one company, and let's say that they put out maybe 300 books a month altogether, which still wasn't the case because Preview's catalog was a lot smaller back then than it is now, but I don't think that's even the case now. But let's say that there are 500 monthly comic book titles coming out. Well, if there's 500 monthly comic book titles, that means that there are 500 positions for pencilers, 500 positions for inkers, 500 positions for colorists, 500 positions for letterers, 500 positions for writers. Now, that's not including artists that, ink their own work or ink and color their own work, writers who also writer artists, people that do two jobs together. On the rare occasion, the penciler who can do more than one book a month. The letterers who are lettering 5-10 comics a month, the colorists that are coloring, 2 or 3 books a month. I mean, of course, they're also hiring flatters and have assistants, so they're actually bringing a few more people under them. But, even if there was one person for each of those positions, for each book, that's a job market of 2,500 jobs. That is an incredibly tiny job market to go into. And I thought to myself, I would have to be insane to want to work in such an incredibly small job market. I mean, you want to talk competitive. I mean, hell, I'd be honestly probably better off trying to get a job as an actor in Hollywood. So I thought I should probably start looking at something else to do with myself that is creative, that allows me to draw. And I started taking classes in the animation department. And it was very enlightening because, as opposed to the fine art program that I was in, where people were more concerned about galleries and being able to wax eloquent about your work and your ideas and your concepts, animators just had to know how to draw their ass off. They needed to understand form and volume and structure and anatomy and how to conceive and imagine all of those things and extrapolate. So, I started studying anatomy, studying animation, taking animation classes, and I even tested at a few animation studios, and I was an intern at Nickelodeon when I was in college. I never did get a full-time job in animation. I did get some small jobs that weren't at a major animation studio, but people that were working on animated projects, and I did some flash animation, did some storyboarding, character design, a few odds and ends. But being that I'm kind of a loose, sloppy artist, I was never that great at staying on model, and there was never an opportunity that clicked for me, and I think that if I were really persistent with it, I could probably develop the chops to stay on model, but it just inherently wasn't something I was good at, and I never found the right opportunity for me. I went into graphic design, which is how I've made my living for many years as a creative professional. However, working as a graphic designer, first doing web design and now for the past few years working in product and package design in the toy industry, I was working with a good friend of mine, or a person who became a good friend of mine at the time. We met at the job. My friend Carl Altstetter. He's been a comic professional for years. He's worked on, books for Marvel, DC. He's published his own works and continues to this day. We bonded over comics because the project we were working on was directly related to comics. It was a toy that had a comic book tie-in, and we brought him on to be the comic book artist for it and to do a lot of the character art for the style guide for the toy line. And I was going to do I was in my personal life outside of work. I had found that I still loved comics. I still loved writing and drawing and telling a story visually. And I had tried during my animation phase, I tried doing an animated short on my own, and I found it very gratifying. I enjoyed it, but the time it took me to do one animated short, I probably could have drawn a whole graphic novel. And so I decided comics are just a more efficient way for me to tell this story where I've got all the control and I don't have to cede power to anyone else. I can just do what I want to do and have it be my vision. So I thought I still want to do comics. And if I can't do them and make, get work at a major publisher, I'm just going to do them and put them online. And there were probably, webcomics probably did exist at this time in the early 2000s. I'm sure I'd seen a few. I can actually know for certain I did run across a few, but it certainly wasn't the robust webcomics environment that exists now. But I just thought, I love the work. I love the medium of writing and drawing comics. I'm just going to do it, put it online. And he told me, hey, if you're doing this work, it's good enough to publish. You should go ahead and publish it yourself and put it out. And I had never really genuinely thought of myself as being somebody who could self-publish. I mean, I just thought that, like, everything I'd read up till now was people, they would go put a couple of issues of something out and run out of money and they wouldn't be able to do it. But fortunately, I was right on the cusp of print on demand becoming becoming available at all, being able to do really short print runs at an affordable price. And at the same time, I also saved up enough money for a small print run of my first graphic novel. And I just decided I'm going to go for it. Write the whole thing, publish it, do it. And I just figured that would be my business model. Save up enough for the printing, do a book, when it's done, print it, put it out there, sell whatever I'm able to sell, and move on to the next book. And I figured hopefully by the time I'm ready to publish the next book, I will have sold all of what I printed before of the previous version, or of whatever the previous book I'd done was. And I could use that money towards the next one, just roll it in, and it would be my passion project. I would write and draw comics because I wanted to. And if it hopefully would be profitable, and hopefully someday I could do it full time, but I wasn't going to let the limitations of the market stop me from doing what I was passionate about. And so the answer to the question of why I make comics is because I feel like I have to. I tried to walk away from it. I tried to quit comics before I was even in. And some would argue, being that I'm just somebody who's just self-publishing, one graphic novel and a few issues of a new series I'm working on, that I'm still not really in per se. But I tried to walk away from it and could not. It had its fangs deep in me, and it would not let go. And I hope that it never does. So that's, I think, the kind of dedication that you need to do something creative that can be difficult. The creative process itself is challenging. Then getting that work out into the world and sharing it with people, trying to make some sort of profit from it, all those things are extremely difficult. And you could just create the work and give it away and not worry about that at all. But even that takes a toll on itself, because if you're not trying to find a way to make it profitable, then you have to find some other way to sustain yourself financially. And doing another job like that while putting all of your energy into a creative passion project is draining in other ways too. So there's no way around it. Either way, there's an emotional and there's a time cost to all of these things. But if you can't not do it, then it doesn't matter whether it's writing, drawing, music, acting. That's what makes us thrive creatively. It's when you have this thing that it's a calling. That's the only way you can put it, is that it's a calling. And I don't think that I'm the world's greatest comic book artist, and I don't want to think that I don't believe I'm ever going to be. But I'm not doing it to be number one. I'm doing it because I love it. So that's why I make comics. All right, this went on for a while. Probably a bit too long, probably a bit too rambly, but it was on my mind, so I thought I'd share. That's it. Check out my website, optichouse.com. Pick up a comic book or an art print. Sign up for my mailing list. Get inside my head. See what other stuff I'm working on. And if you like these drawing videos, please share them with others. That's it. Go be creative.